Welcome to Biracial Broadcast, where we explore the vibrant and complex world of biracial identity with a mix of humor, honesty, and insight. This podcast is your go-to source for real talk. We'll dive into everything from family dynamics to privilege and the challenges of being biracial, to tackling issues like discrimination and racism, all while keeping things light, casual, and fun. You ready to get biracial? Hit that subscribe button and join the conversation. Let's get right into it. And welcome in, Pops.
Hey,
Welcome.
hey, thank you for having me.
Of course. Well, you're the co-host of the show, so of course we're happy to have you here. I'm your host, Jay. This is the co-host, Justin, JRKD, as it says in the Bible. Not the Bible, the bio. But man, this is exciting. This has been something that's been in the works for a while, something that we've talked about several times, wanting to do a podcast together. And I finally gave in to you, so here we are. And so the biracial broadcast, for the people that are brand new, as they heard in the intro there with the music and whatnot. Also, before we jump into that, but the music, the opening, and the closing beats are brought to you by the Podbeat app. You can download the Podbeat app for free wherever you get your apps from. Podbeat app allows you to turn any podcast or any audiobook into a musical experience for free by allowing you to overlay one of their many, many beats. The beats that you heard to open the podcast today was the trip hop beat. So highly recommend the trip hop beat and recommend the Podbeat app in general. So without further ado, why the heck did we land on biracial broadcast to even start out here?
Well, that's a good question. I've been thinking about it for a while, and I just thought it was a good topic that would kind of reach a lot of different audiences, and some insight, and maybe more identification of who you are and more of accepting of who you are in general.
100%. Well, it's who we both are, right? It's who we both are.
Yeah.
You grew up biracial in a sense. I grew up biracial in a sense. Biracial for myself, especially after I came and lived with you. That was a culture shock in itself. But, living in these different communities, growing up in these different dynamics teaches you a lot of things. And biracial isn't just black and white. Individuals who are black and Caucasian or African American, Caucasian, however you want to say it, spin it, whatever. It's more than that. You can be like Joseph, my brother, Mexican, and, also raised African American as well. You could be Asian American and Caucasian. It really depends on your walk of life, what you've been through, all the different things. And so biracial looks a lot of different ways to a lot of different people. So it's important that we talk about this and we talk about these issues because unfortunately, we're still in 2024 and we still have to talk about race and the impact of race and discrimination and racism because it's an ongoing thing. Even though slavery was abolished many, many years ago and Martin Luther King and integration and whatnot, we're still here in 2024. So you have a thought? I thought you were going to say something. There. All right. So let me ask you this. What was growing up like for you? How were you raised? What is your biracial identity? I wanted to share what both of us, kind of where our biracialness comes from.
Okay, because
So our own experience being biracial, and then we'll jump into the biracial quad.
The biracial quad of those 4 questions. Okay. Now I'm kind of getting all refreshed. And do you like my shaved beard?
It looks great. And just so you know, I'm going to do very little editing to this so that people are going to get the full experience here. Episode number 1 of the biracial broadcast are going to get the whole thing, the ups and downs, the trials and tribulations, all of it. So it's going to be great. But for you, okay, I'll go first. I'll start here. So for me, being biracial was something that I knew I was like growing up. So I was raised, as the listeners don't know, we're father and son. You're my dad. I'm your son. Yes, go look on YouTube. You'll see it in the facial features more so than anything else. But so I was raised by my maternal and grandmother. So I was raised by this man's baby mama mother who's raised me. And I was raised in South Seattle, Washington. And so in South Seattle, it's very white. I was raised very, very white. My grandfather, who was married to her at the time, also white. He passed away when I was 8 years old. And so then after that, all my family around me, everyone was white. And that's all I ever knew. Of course, I had friends who were not white. And I always seemed, thinking about it right now, like I always seemed to fit in with the kids who were colored, brown, black, Mexican, Hispanic, Latino, Asian. I always fit in better with them than I did with the white kids. I don't know why, I just did. And it just made more sense to be friends with them than it did the white kids. So the white kids didn't like me, but everyone else did. So there was that. So growing up, did that until I was about 13, and then I went and lived in Hawaii for a couple years. So that was another kind of experience there, because my grandfather, my maternal grandfather, is biracial. I guess my mother's biracial too. Uh, I guess, technically speaking, but I don't talk about her a lot. But so Grandpa Ron, my tutu Ron, is was a mix of, he doesn't even know what. There's Haitian, there's Native American, there's white, there's black. We don't know for sure because he never did a DNA test. So I'm sure if I did a DNA test, at least I would know some of it, where that's coming from. So then being raised in that culture in Hawaii, that was a whole experience. Really, that was my first cultural experience. That was when I realized, holy crap, I'm not just white. I fit into these different categories. And that's when I started to hear more stories. And then I got in contact with you when I was 15. And you can hear this whole story at length on the Young Dad podcast, episode number 100. We did a whole breakdown of it. It was super cool, super fun. We'll repost this. Just you can go look at it there. So, and then I got to know you, and then I went and lived in Oakland. That's when I really realized, holy crap, I am not white or just white. I am way more than white. And it was a total shock to me. Being raised in Oakland, going to a school with the script flipped. And I'll get into this more later when we get into the biracial quad, but I was a minority at my high school for 2 years. So that was crazy, more or less. And then I transferred my senior year to another high school that better fit me, better fit kind of where I was and whatnot. So yeah, that's kind of my experience being biracial. Grew up white. Wasn't until I was a teenager when I realized, holy crap, I am more than just white. And that was a big realization at that time. It's been a big realization in my life since then. Something I'm very proud of that I maybe wasn't before. So yeah, so that's my story a little bit. Please share with us your story, Dad.
Okay, well, my story is I was born in 1973 in Haight-Ashbury in San Francisco, and my father was black and my mother is white. She still is white because she's still here.
Can we just
Then
share her name real quick, please? Can we please share what her name
no,
is? Because it's just gonna.
no. So anyway, so then basically I lived here in California till I was like born to which I was about 5, which I don't remember a whole lot. My dad passed away when I was 5, so I don't have a lot of early memories like before 5, honestly. So if I did say something, I probably feel like I was like making it up. So I didn't really have anything that really stood out in my mind during that period. And then we moved to Seattle, and my sister was born. My mother was remarried to my stepdad, who was also African American.
She has a type.
Yeah, and then we moved to when we first got to Seattle. We lived in low income housing, and it was just kind of a mix of different minorities, and there was white kids and black kids. And then we moved to Ballard when I think I was about 6 or 7, and that was in North Seattle, which was like old Swedish, Scandinavian, white, 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 and then white again. And so I didn't even I and
That should be the
actually
name of a book.
yeah, and actually I don't even remember even thinking because I knew my mom was white, I knew my stepdad was black, my grandmother was white, who I spent a lot of time with. I spent a little bit of time with my dad's family, but not too much or like that I like remember. But until I was like 8, I didn't even really think about like there was actually a race, if that makes any sense. I just
Mhm.
thought everybody was kind of the same. I don't even remember thinking anybody was a different race until I was around 8, honestly. Yeah, so then when I did find out, should I be telling that story now or is that a later story?
Save it. Go ahead and save that story, that part for it.
Okay.
We'll get there.
Yeah. And so then we lived in Ballard, and then when I was about 11, started going to middle school, and that was in South Seattle. That was like the black community. And then from the age of like 13, 12 or 13, I just kind of always gravitated towards the black community. And those were most of my friends and probably still are to this day. And then Well, I'm 51 now, and then just over the course of years, like my wife is Latina, and I've taught myself Spanish. I mean, because all my jobs I've been in cooking, so everybody spoke Spanish there, and then I went into real estate, some Spanish there, but at the same time I went into real estate and I went into construction, so I've been kind of speaking Spanish and been around that community for the last 30 some years, you know. So, I mean, um, I don't I don't know. I used to have some thoughts about race, but so that's basically it. Yeah. And I'm in Oakland. I've been in Oakland for 30 years. So, and Oakland's pretty mixed
Oakland,
up.
Oaktown. Yeah, Oakland is, yeah, Oakland's mixed. The whole Bay Area is mixed, but
Yeah.
I wanted to point out that you mentioned that you didn't start seeing race or anything till you were about like 7, 8 years old.
About 8. I was 8.
And so
And I was 8. 8.
8 years old. So I wanted to look it up real quick. So Yale did a study back in 2020. And so infants as young as 6 months old can recognize differences in skin color. By age 2.5, research has shown children prefer playmates who are similar in race and gender. And as early as age 3, they're forming judgments about people based on their racial differences. I thought that was just interesting here to throw in. Something to think about. A fact that is just interesting, more or less.
I don't believe that shit. That's garbage. That's garbage.
I mean, Yale did it. So it's
still garbage. It's still
probably
garbage. That's so not true. That's so not true.
I don't think it's true either, because it's all taught, right? It's all taught.
I think that's the farthest thing from the truth I've ever read.
Well, yeah. Well, because it's taught. It's fully taught. Like hate is taught. Like I don't allow the girls, your granddaughters, my kids, I don't allow them to say the word hate. And I had to have a conversation with the older one today because she said I hate something that was in relation to school or something. And I'm like, whoa. And I had to correct her real quick, and she corrected herself real quick because she knew, I really don't like, and she corrected herself really quick. And so, but we had to have the conversation like, okay, well, why don't we say that? She's like, because we just don't. You don't let us. I'm like, well, that's true, but there's also no place for hate in your heart or in your body. Like, there's no place for that. You don't got time for that. There's no place of that lives inside of you. So don't even think it. Don't say it. Kind of thing. You can strongly dislike something. That's fine. You don't have to love everything and love everyone all the time, but there's no room for hate. So,
want to come say hi, Carlos?
Hello.
This is my 9-year-old. That's Carlos.
That's my little brother.
They can't see you.
Hello.
Yeah, they can. They can see him. What's up, Carlos?
See him now.
Hello.
Carlos is also biracial. Technically, right? I don't know.
Go back
but
to
Carlos is my youngest brother. He's the baby.
Is it technically considering that my mom is white and my dad is black? So,
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
All right, okay, moving on.
Correct.
So what's the next topic?
All right. So let's jump into the biracial quad here. So the biracial quad is 4 questions that we're going to dive into during every conversation, whether with each other. Like today, we're both going to answer these 4 questions. And then as we progress, as this podcast continues, as we have guests and whatnot, we're also going to ask them the biracial quad, ask them a little bit about their story, their history, their background. So the biracial quad is 4 questions for us to jump into judgments, racism, privilege, and kind of see exactly where we're at with being biracial and explore like our viewpoints on it and stuff. So that's a little bit about the context of the biracial quad. So first question here, I'm going to shoot to you first. You're going to answer first one. I'll answer after you. Have you ever been judgmental or racist toward any part of yourself?
Yes.
Elaborate. You got to elaborate. You don't get to just say yes. You don't get to just cop out like that.
Well, I mean, but there's a reason for it, though, so I don't know if I should just say it like, yes, I have, and then, but why? I mean,
just say it. Yeah, just.
I mean, I've definitely had a lot of prejudgment due to experience with Caucasian people. Some black people, but really not with any black people. Just it's been with Caucasian people.
And so you're racist toward the white part of yourself, or judgmental towards your Caucasianness.
I was, but I've gotten a lot better over the years.
Okay. And has that impacted any like relationships with like your mom or white family members or
No.
Even myself, your dear precious son?
No.
That's fair. I would say yes too. And I would say mine was more, well, it's evolved, like it's changed to where when I was younger, it was toward the black part of myself because, like, that's what I was told. That's what I was being taught. That's what I was
Hmm.
being fed. I had friends who were black. Like one of my friends around the corner when we lived in Mill Creek, he lived right on the corner. His name was Darian. He was like the only black kid at the school, but him and I were super tight,
Hmm.
right? And so he was great. But I was definitely racist toward like the black part of myself. Like I wasn't allowed to stay at his house super late. I was allowed to like go and do certain things with him, even though he would invite us over. Like it took probably 6 months before my grandma went and let me go and hang out at his house.
Hmm.
Right? They lived literally around the corner. I was always invited over, like always invited over. Like they had our house phone number, so his parents would call my grandma, and grandma would answer, and she would say, "No, not today." And then there was even some parts of it that were like stereotypes. Right? There's a lot of stereotypes that I was heard, and what I was being taught and whatnot. And I'm like, that just doesn't sit right because I have black friends at school, and they're not bad people. Like they're some of my best friends. So it's definitely toward myself at that point. I would say when I first got to Oakland and when I first was in school, I was definitely scared. I was definitely scared because I'm just like I don't know how to act. I don't know how to be. I don't know who I am, what I am. Like I am one of 3 white kids here, and I'm the only white kid in my class. And it was such a small school because it was a charter school. I'm like the
I'm
only
the only
white
white
kid
kid in my
in.
family.
Yeah, I'm the only white kid in my family. Well, Joe is pretty white too.
Yeah.
Okay, he's just
And
super light skinned.
No, but no, but
Um,
I mean, but we're talking about culturally. We're not talking about like looking.
yeah, no, culturally, yeah, like I am like the whitest white. Like I am like I stick out. Like when we went in public, I'm pretty sure you could have gotten called the cops on you because there's some strange white kid with you, most of the time. And that was myself. So I looked white, act white, talked white, all the things. And so there was definitely some fear and like some racism towards like the black part of myself, even though it was like, whoa, no, 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 like I'm not racist. Like my dad's black, so like I use that as like a cover for a long time. Until I finally fit in to like not have anything happen. Like I had to use that. I'm like, whoa, 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 like I'm not black. I'm like my dad's black. Like we're cool. Like I'm not white like that kind of thing. So I had to like cover myself. But no, it's definitely there. But now, as over time, like as it progresses and whatnot, it's definitely more towards like I don't know. I don't like hate. Like I don't hate in any way, shape, or form, or discrimination or racism in any of its shapes or sizes toward anyone. Um, but I definitely can feel it towards myself more because I notice like the privilege more, which leads us right into the second question here, and I'll hit first here. Do I feel or do you feel that you have privilege of being biracial? And I would say yes to that too, um, because over time I was able to like I learned how to use it. Right, I learned the different places where I could go, where I could use it, and things like that. And so now, as kind of answer both of them, like I can see the privilege in others. Like we were at Goodwill a couple weeks ago, and there was this white lady who said super loud, super obnoxiously, imagine having to buy like underwear from Goodwill. Like that's sick. And not like and she did this motion, not like sick, like this. But she's like, that's like sick, like gross, like and I'm like, you're and your privilege is kind of thing. So yeah, definitely I felt like some privilege of being biracial because I have used it to like pick and choose at different spots and things like that. Sometimes I need to act more white to fit in or to, to do a certain thing or get a certain place. And sometimes I need to pull, different cards out and things like that. Not to be like two-faced or anything, but there is different privileges because you know how to navigate different scenarios with different people.
Okay.
That that makes sense. So that's my take on it. How about for you? Do you feel any privilege of being biracial?
I definitely think I have some privilege. I mean, just like you get treated one way because of the way you look, I get treated one way because of the way I look. And I do, but then I don't. It's kind of a crazy world. I deal with so many different kinds of people on a annual, daily basis. I don't just deal with one group of people. So I guess my only privilege is just I really had the privilege to get to know different kinds of people. and it's really doesn't even come down to race. It's more of like a personality type, and then there's like some stereotypes and some race beliefs that are mixed in with their personality, which is probably not that great to begin with anyway, you know. So I mean, my privilege was just learning. I get to learn about all these different kinds of people, and I can kind of know what they're going to react and who I should deal with and who I shouldn't deal with, you know. But then even then, I'm wrong. So I mean, it's yeah. I mean, privilege, yeah, maybe some, you know. But I think probably everybody has a bit of privilege, you know, in one way, shape, or form. You know,
Yeah.
it can go
Yeah.
both ways. It can go both ways.
Yeah, I think it goes always, you know.
Yeah.
Like I was at Lowe's, and it was over the summer. I was picking up something at Lowe's, and I was getting back in my car, and this dude gets like off the bus, and he's walking through the Lowe's parking lot, and there's a Carl's Jr. right there by the garden center of the Lowe's here, and he's walking through because that's where I'm parked. Carl's Jr. is over here. I'm like right. Lowe's is over here. I'm in the middle, getting into my car, and so when I get into the car or I'm getting in there, dude points at Carl's Jr. says, "Buy me a burger." Says, "Buy me a burger," and I'm like, "No, not not today, man. Like I'm just trying to get this sprinkler. I'm just trying to go home." Like, "Sorry, not today." And I wave him off real quick, like, "Sorry, no." And he gets mad, like
Hmm.
real mad. Like he stands in front of my car with his Gatorade bottle, like he's about to throw it through my windshield. And then he gets on the side of my car, and he gets like his face all up in my window. Like, not my doors are locked, windows up, but he gets all up on the glass instead, and he's like pounding on my window and like pounds on my car for me to get out and to fight him, and he's calling me all sorts of names and stuff, and I'm just trying to ignore him and get on out of there. If I ran over his foot, I'm not sorry, because don't get in my space like that. But that privilege, is that privilege, like a little bit for everybody. No matter your circumstances, you feel privileged in some way, like somebody owes you something, like society owes you something. But in reality, no one really owes you anything except for what you owe yourself. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
What are you doing? Are you good?
Scratching my leg.
That's what it looks like for sure. But no, I think I agree with you. Privilege lives with everybody for some reason. And I think the one thing with privilege is you can't let it make you think you're better than other people. I mean, I had a problem with that when I came and lived with you at first. Like, I thought I would.
I mean, like the one thing that I can say is just I have a perfect example because I really try not to think that people are racist because I just kind of think that maybe they don't understand or something, you know? So,
Okay.
but it's just like, but like one example is like stereotypical because, okay, so I used to work for this bathroom company, right? Because I'm a general contractor. And they used to send me to go do these people's houses. We do their bathrooms, we leave and this and that, you know? I mean, but when I would show up, being me, some of those people they were in Marin, they were in like really high end areas. When they would see me, they'd be like, "Oh my God, who's this person coming to my house?" They don't know me from Adam, you know.
Mm-hmm.
It's like they, and I had one experience that was completely nuts, which I'm not even going to talk about because it was just completely like, and I can if you want me to, but
I
basically,
mean, you
so
can. I mean, we're free to share whatever we want. It's our
yeah,
podcast.
but it's like I know for a fact that if I would have showed up looking more like you versus looking more like me, even though we kind of look the same, but I'm being hypothetical here, you know. So, but
Yeah.
so if I would have if I would have looked more like you, and they would have, so basically when I came to their house, they didn't have a choice or who they were working for their house. If they would have saw me and I would have knocked on the door in the random, then they would not have hired me just based on me. So, but they probably would have hired you, you know, based on you. There definitely is some privilege. It's not like it doesn't exist, you know, and just like that Yale study that you just read about the kids trying to stick with their own race. I mean, that's what adults do too, you know. I mean,
Yeah.
it's just kind of a normal thing. So, I mean, you know, chances are if you're a white person, you're probably gonna well, because that's not true either, you know. But I mean,
Yeah.
it's just but it's so little. I mean, out of all the people that I've dealt with over the years, I mean, I can really only think of maybe out of all the thousands of people I've met in the 51 years I've been dealing with people and doing paper routes and working in restaurants and selling real estate and going to construction sites and doing estimates and talking to random people. Out of all the people that I've met in this world, as far as being like mean and racist, if I met 10,000 people, let's just say in my lifetime, let's just be conservative, say I've met 5,000 different people and I've had some sort of conversation with them. Okay, let's just say that. But out of those 5,000 people, I could honestly say there was probably maybe 3 or 4 people that just probably were racist and mean or just unknowingly ignorant is what I like to call it. But then lots of times those people weren't even, they just happened to be racist, but they were just assholes. They were just not nice people, you know? And like those people they've come in all colors, you know? So,
no, true.
I mean, I think when you mix your opinionated toxicity about different races and what they do and how they act and how they be, and you just kind of being a really shitty person, and I think it's just a really bad mix, you know? Because I just don't see why anybody would really be racist at the end of the day. It's like, doesn't even make any freaking sense, honestly.
Yeah, and
it really doesn't make any sense.
it doesn't. And I think it's exactly what you said there. You mentioned it super briefly, but I caught it there. I'm not sure if our listeners caught it there, but it's really that it's a lack of understanding. It's a lack of empathy, and it's a lack of, I mean, it's ignorance, right? It's blissful ignorance.
Yeah.
And it's also another way to phrase that's a little bit more wordy and whatnot. Another term for it is unconscious biases, which, if our listeners don't know what unconscious biases are, we all have them. Every single one of us have them.
Yeah.
And unconscious biases are social stereotypes about certain groups of people that individuals form outside their own conscious awareness. Everyone holds unconscious beliefs about various social and identity groups. And these biases stem from one's tendency to organize social worlds by categorizing. And so that's a fancy way, pretty much, was just saying that you have these preconceived notions. Like when you walk past a homeless person, right? You have unconscious biases that pop up, like, oh, they're going to use money for drugs, or they're not going to actually use it for whatever their sign says, right? Or except for that one sign we saw in Seattle that one time, the dude just wanting weed. I still remember that. He just wanted money for weed. I'm pretty sure that was the most honest sign I've ever seen in my entire life. But I digress here. Sorry, it just made me think of that. But we all have these unconscious biases that flare up from time to time, and they're outside of our conscious awareness. What you are aware of is you're constantly checking all the time. But when you kind of have that feeling like, don't want to go and sit next to that person because they're, they look like this. They don't want to go and do that kind of thing. Ooh, I'm going to sit over here on the bus versus up there on the bus. So, and that would be like me thinking, oh, from one experience I had. You remember that when I was in high school and I was at the bus stop after school one day, I was on my way home and I called you because there was a crazy lady at the bus stop with a knife?
I don't recall.
It was my senior year. It was my senior year.
We can just pretend that I remember so you can continue with your story.
Okay, yeah. So if that had happened and I would have checked that into like my unconscious beliefs, right? I would assume like, hey, all women at the bus stop want to stab me, right? For some reason, right? When she was just crazy. Or it's like, okay, if I see someone hop up on drugs, they're gonna try to stab me. Point of it being, not everyone's bad. Not everyone's inherently bad. There's, of course, exceptions to that, right? There's always going to be extremism on all sides of the aisle. But it's just about believing in people. It's just about believing that people maybe just need a little bit more education. Maybe they just need to have a conversation. Maybe you just need to, get to know them, not judge them, and be a little bit more patient and empathetic with them overall.
Yeah, they just need to open their mind.
Yeah. You got to check your bias at the door. Because I guarantee if I would have showed up to that person's house and said I was a contractor and they hired me, they would have got a really bad job done. But versus them hiring you, they get a great job done. And so, big difference. You can't judge a book by its cover unless you're in the library, and then you can kind of do that more. But
yeah, that was really a crazy story, man. Yeah, that was really a crazy story.
We should share more of it sometime. Do you identify? third question of the biracial quad here. We're trugging along. Do you identify more with one side of you than the other? So do you identify with one race of yours more than the other?
Definitely black people. That's where I'm comfortable, honestly. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I feel that. I feel like for me, like I can kind of chameleon my way in to the crowd and kind of adapt to like who I'm around
Mm-hmm.
and be comfortable. Like after a little bit, like I'm really uncomfortable at first. Like, and it really doesn't matter who I'm with, except if I'm with you or like the kids or wife or something, or like really close friends, like people who I know really well that know me really well. But if it's like a really big group, like I really try to like chameleon and like sit back and observe and be like, okay, here's a group. Like a good example of this was at my brother-in-law's baby shower a couple months ago. Like I was just like, I don't know who anyone is. I don't speak the same language as most of these people here because I don't speak Spanish. I'm working on it, but I'm like, I don't know where I fit in here, right? Do I stick close to my wife and just have her translate for me, or do I run around with the kids, or do I just go and sit inside? But then there's people inside, kind of thing. So it was really just kind of trying to find like, okay, notice who's like more open, receptive, where are all the other dads at, and then I find the group of dads and we start hammering buzz balls, and it was a great time. And so yeah, it's for me, it's more just finding like the group to where I can most like fit in the moment and have the best time for where I'm at.
Okay. Well,
And then
that's
for
good.
the oh, go
Go
ahead.
ahead. Go ahead. No, I'm listening. I'm listening. Yeah,
Oh no, that was it.
that was a pretty short answer for me. I don't have much more to say to that. Your answer's
Yeah,
pretty long.
yeah, yeah. When did you realize you were biracial?
Oh, I finally get to tell a story?
Yes. Now tell this story. Tell this story. Yeah,
Okay.
we made it
So
back
I
here. We're looping back.
so I finally get to tell my story. So when I found out that I wasn't, because now let me just preface the story as I didn't really think that there were different races. I thought everybody was an 8-year-old. But then I was a little bit, and then after this happened, well, it's so complicated and convoluted. So let me just try to start. So basically, as I said in my intro, we moved to Ballard. This was in 19. This must have been probably about 1980. I think I must have been about 7. So this was 1980 Ballard. This is Seattle. This is like the old Swedish neighborhood. I think I had one of the neighbors' wives was a black woman, but other than that, everybody else was white. So it was a very, very white neighborhood. So there was one other little mixed kid on the street, but he never played with us for some reason. Anyway, so this was 80s Ballard. And I remember the day because it used to be like this was like 80s, like that you see on the TV where the kids are outside and they're riding their bikes and they're going to the arcade and they're throwing ball in the street and there's you know playing in the street until the street lights are off and then you have to go inside, right? So and this was like exactly how it was. Like I'm not just making up a story. So anyway, all those kids were white kids. Okay, like white on white kids. So I don't remember what happened one day. I think I was 8. I was 8 and they called me a nigger. And I'm like,
With a hard R.
yeah. Yeah, they called me a nigger and I'm like, what do you
Hard R. Wow.
Yeah, yeah, and I'm like, what I was I was taken aback. I was dumbfounded. I was shocked 'cause I didn't know what it meant. Like I didn't know what it meant. And I had no idea that that was a derogatory term, which I quickly did come to learn after further explanation from these young white children. And so then, and so then, and so then I went back. So then I ran back to my mom, my white mother, and I'm like, they just called me a nigger, and then she goes, oh my gosh, I knew this day was gonna happen. I should have explained this to you sooner. You know,
What?
I should explain to you that that you're not like the other kids. And I'm like, huh? What do you mean? You're white, so I'm white. We're like, this doesn't make any fucking sense. This doesn't make any sense. And she's like, oh my god, because nobody fucking told me. Nobody told me. Nobody briefed me on the assignment of not being white, and I was just very shocked, and I was hurt. And so then and then after that, like I didn't even, and I think later, and I got in a fight with one of the kids, and so we lived in Ballard. So this is kind of where I got my black friends from, because they obviously weren't from Ballard. So the CD, which was the Central District, so back in the 80s, they started busing for integration, right? So like I lived in a white neighborhood, but I would get bused to the black schools. Since the time I was about 9 or 10, I would get bused to the black schools, even though I lived in a white neighborhood. And then I kind of was like, they were always nice to me. All the black people were always nice to me. They always were understanding of me. They thought I was hilarious. I always went to their house, and it was just really like I felt so comfortable with them, like from like the minute of, I just felt like I wasn't different. I felt like I was the same. But then that's not, I mean, that's true how I felt. But it actually took me a while to feel like that too, because then there's the whole light skin, dark skin, there's a whole lot of different, and then obviously since I did grow up around white people, my mannerisms and my speak was very white. So I would get a lot of judgment because they thought I was like one of those, okay, well, and I hate to say it. So there's like white mixed kids and there's black mixed kids, if that makes sense.
Makes sense to me. Yeah.
Yeah. So basically they thought I was one of those white mixed kids, which basically I was, but I kind of wasn't, but I was, So it took a while for them people to kind of accept me for who I was, but it wasn't by the whites. It was by black people. So, and that's just where that's why I gravitated to go. That's all my friends. That's the community that I hang out with. My daughter's mother, her family, they were like one of the first African American families in Seattle in like the 1920s. That bought a house in the Central District and kept it for 60 years and did the military, like a very like traditional family. So that was my first family, because my mother kicked me out when I was about 15, 16. My mother kicked me out so I went to go live with her family. When my mother kicked me out, I went to go live with my daughter's mother's family, and then we ended up having a kid a couple of years later, and that's my other daughter. But yeah, I mean, that's just kind of where I've been. And I think I went off on a tangent. I don't know how to wrap back around, but
No, you're good.
it's basically
What I
it.
want to know more of is, so you mentioned it was the 1980s, right? 1980s. And so this is kind of in that period of like post World War II de jure segregation. You know what that is, right?
No. This was way after that. This was during like the drug war and the crack epidemic and Reagan. This was a long time after war. This was 1980. I think the last war was in the
Yeah.
And you're talking about the Vietnam War.
No, after World War II, between World War II and Vietnam, there was de jure. You know what de jure segregation is, right?
Okay, maybe I think so.
So de jure segregation, for our listeners that don't know, was what the government was doing post World War II, was the legal segregation of African Americans and whites, to where they would, it's kind of exactly like you're saying here, where yes, the communities were kind of integrated, not really, but kind of integrated, but they still legally were able to keep things segregated, right? And that was still okay. So 1980s, we're thinking of here, which blows my mind because I was only born, 15 years later, mid 1990s. And so that's, to me, it blows my mind because that was literally a generation ago that there was still that level of segregation, literally a generation before me. And we're 2 generations removed from that now with, my kids and things like that. We have Gen Zs and millennials and you as a Gen X. So living in that, going through it, what was the world like around that time? Like 1980s, there's still some legal forms of segregation. Like, what was it like growing up through that?
It was, I mean, for me, I was like, almost like, it was just kind of, I think I really kind of overcompensated to prove to my friends that I wasn't like some stupid white kid, And so I spent a lot of my teenage years probably doing stuff that I shouldn't have, just to prove that I wasn't some stupid white kid, And I don't mean to be offensive that all stupid white kids or black people think of kids as stupid white kids or something like that. But that was kind of
No.
what I that was kind of what I kind of felt in my mind, which was probably a lot of it was probably like really like was manufactured in my head, you know. So I definitely overcompensated in my teenage years, you know. But it was great, and but like the good thing, even though like about my mother, even though she was white, she wasn't like, you know, white, you know, like you know, both of her husbands were black. One thing about her that I really am thankful for is that she always had all the old Aretha Franklin and soul music and Marvin Gaye, and she was really kind of culturally. I don't not. I mean, because she wasn't like one of the white girls that like tried. I gotta wash my mouth. She wasn't like one of the white women that like. She wasn't like one of the white women that like wanted to act black. You know, she just kind of enjoyed a lot of parts of the black culture. You know, and music was a big part because I even like remember. You can look it up. You can look it up on your computer, but I don't remember what year Marvin. Look it up on your computer and see what year did Marvin Gaye die.
April 1st, 1984. He was
Yeah,
one day short of his 45th birthday,
yeah, and his
and he
dad
was
killed him.
shot and killed by his own father.
Yeah, that was sad. So anyway, I remember that day my mother was crying. I'm like, why are you? She was crying because Marvin Gaye had gotten shot. I mean, that's how much he was an icon, you know? And like that's what Marvin Gaye, he was a singer in the 70s, in the 80s. Yeah, but like but the only reason I tell that story is because she really was like affected and crying because she really did like enjoy it. And so I did get that opportunity to like go and be exposed to that somewhat by her. My stepdad was around for a little while. She had a boyfriend when I was like 12 or 13, and he was like straight from the streets, and he actually taught me a whole lot. You know, his name was Chester. That guy was nuts. That guy had fallen out of a wheelchair and broke both of his legs while smoking crack, and he ended up being my mom's boyfriend. I don't know what the fuck happened for a while.
She was, I mean, she enjoyed the culture, the men, the music.
Yeah, but not. But so yeah, so that was kind of, you know. But yeah, I mean, but that's kind of where I am now. You know.
That's interesting that you mentioned the music part of it because that's the same thing that thinking about it now, that's the same thing that you did for me when I came and lived with you. You introduced me to all of it kind of through music. Wu-Tang Clan, that's the only one I can remember right now. But there was a lot of other music that we listened to in the car. Like there was a lot that you introduced me from. I remember I think it was maybe the first or second weekend that I was there, like living with you. We
Mhm.
were over at Cheryl's that weekend, and I was literally, no joke, the only.
You should probably tell him who Cheryl is.
Oh, Cheryl's are my great aunt, your aunt.
My dad's brother. I mean, my dad's sister.
Yeah, so your aunt
Mm-hmm.
and my great aunt.
Mm-hmm.
And that week, it was probably only the first or second weekend that I was like living in Oakland. So it was all still brand new. It was scary. We lived in East Oakland at the time. We lived on Roberts, so it was like this nice little area, this nice little pocket. Oakland's great. It has these great pockets in it, or at least it did. I don't know. I haven't been there in a while. It's been about 5 years since I've been there, but I was literally the only white person at the cookout. I was the only white person that got the invite to this cookout. It was my first cookout, and I was just like, I don't know who. Everyone knew who I was. Everybody. And I was like, oh my gosh, it's so good to see you. And I'm like, I don't know who you are. I've never met you. They're like, I remember when you were little, all this stuff. I'm like, I don't even remember when I was little, but I'm glad you do. Who are you? What is this? I was so overwhelmed. I was so nervous. And so that was like my first experience of like being biracial. And I think that's when I realized like I was biracial because it's like, holy crap, I can actually see it. Like, yes, I've always seen my dad, but now I actually see like more and I can understand more living in Oakland and whatnot. So it was really cool. I would say that experience single-handedly like probably changed 90% of the trajectory for my life since then. Coming and moving with you and living in Oakland like has definitely changed my life for the better in so many different aspects and domains. And so just super grateful for that overall.
That's
Oakland's
good.
the best.
Oakland's
the best.
fire. I'm actually
I mean,
in Oakland right now. I'm actually in Oakland right now, matter of fact.
Look at that. Well, the Oakland Athletics are not. So
Nope. But we got the Oakland Ballers.
woo, Pioneer League team. Keeping it alive. Man, that's sad. Thinking about Oakland and what it used to be, because I remember I went to games at the Oracle and saw the Warriors. I went to games at the Coliseum and saw the A's. I don't think we ever went to a football game. I never went to one and saw the Raiders because those tickets were crazy expensive, and that was crazy. I was legit scared, even going to A's games. Like, you let me as a teenager go to A's games with my friends at the Coliseum by ourselves. That was nuts. But Oakland was different there. Like, it's only as scary as you make it, you know? Like,
Yeah, I
it's
mean,
really
like
not
nobody.
that.
Yeah, I mean, like they say Oakland's like dangerous and crazy, but the majority of people in Oakland, like they don't give a fuck about what you're doing. You know, you just be cool,
No,
man. Just be cool. You be cool. You mind your business and live your life. No, 99% chance you're not going to get bothered. And the people get bothered and hurt are already in the mix and doing stuff they shouldn't be doing anyway.
yeah,
You
if you
know?
just mind your business and, I think that's a
Yeah.
great lesson here to, wrap it up. Like, don't create a problem if there's not a problem. Don't start something that doesn't need to be started. Check yourself before you wreck yourself. Great quote there from some song, MC Hammer. I don't know.
No.
I don't know who that is
I
from,
think
but
I think I think it's Como D. Como D. You can look it
I'll,
up.
I'll look it up
Como
real quick
D.
so we know.
Como D. Check yourself before you wreck yourself.
No, it's a song by Ice Cube.
Oh, Ice Cube. I thought it was Como D. Damn, I'm all fucked up. I was like
No, it's Ice.
back in the 80s for a minute. Yeah, 90s. You're right. It's this Ice Cube. Yep. You're right.
Yeah, that's Cube. And he has DOS EFX on that one, on the remake. So, but yeah, there won't be a problem if there's no problem. I think that's the takeaway here. But yeah, anything you want to leave with the listeners? Any other crazy stories that you want to tell on our first episode here?
Oh gosh, and I got too many, and now we gotta kind of. I got too many. I think I'm really good at kind of telling a story to make a point.
Okay, well, tell that story about the bathroom one. Tell that bathroom story real quick to end us, and then we'll end there.
So what's? Oh, that's later.
Oh, we'll save that one.
And
All
my
right,
brain is
and that's
with
what they
it.
call a cliffhanger. Until next time, right here on the Biracial broadcast. I'm your host Jay. This is Justin, and we hope that you enjoyed getting biracial with us today. Make sure you hit that subscribe button, leave 5 stars, follow, like, comment, engage with us on the Q&As and all the things. And join the conversation. Go ahead and head over to Instagram. You can find the Instagram page at Biracial Broadcast, or you can also find it by going to the Young Dad Pod page as well. Make sure to like, follow, subscribe, and listen to all the great things of Biracial Broadcast, Patriarchy Principles, and Young Dad Podcast here on the Young Dad Podcast feed. And until next time, we'll catch you right back here for maybe solo episodes, more lively co-host banter like us, and possibly even guest interviews that'll bring more diverse perspectives to the table. So until next time.
Deuces.